Hi, it's Sarah with the trains. As you may have noticed, I've taken a different approach to today's video. After recently completing my goal of visiting all the stations in Norfolk, I've decided to give you my top 5 favourite stations in this fair county. To get us started, in at number 5, it's Norwich. Although I've never done a full video about this station, I do think it's worth a mention on this list, as it has featured quite a few times. The architecture at Norwich is a thing of beauty. I especially love the clock tower and the portico that forms the entrance to this beautiful station. To me, Norwich means both the start of an adventure and home. It's also the place I buy my chocolate caramel shortbread for my journeys, so there's a great sense of comfort there. At number 4, it's Brundle Gardens. Other than Norwich, this is actually the first of the main network stations I filmed at when I started my YouTube channel, even though it was in the 3rd video to be uploaded. Even though it's one of the newer stations on this list, only having opened in 1924, I think it's got a great history. Although I've suddenly realised that that is 100 years ago, so maybe referring to it as newer is a bit heavy-handed. Anyway, this lovely little quiet station was built to serve, well, Brundle Gardens, a tourist attraction sometimes referred to as the Switzerland of Norfolk. Sadly, this is long gone, with only a few remnants. Still, the station that bears its name is maintained beautifully by station adopters, and I particularly love this little shed-type waiting shelter, far better than the bus shelter style that you get in most places. One unfortunate thing about Brundle Gardens, though, is the lack of level access between the platforms. Whether this is something that can be remedied in the future, we will have to wait and see. In at number 3, it's another station on the Wherry lines, Acle. The thing I love about this station is it's been given a low-key heritage feel with the addition of all the lovely old signs. It feels almost as if a steam locomotive may come through at any moment. I suspect this is due in no small part to the fact that the old station building is now a holiday cottage. If this were to be merely a 2-platform unstaffed station with disused station building and a smelly waiting shelter, something that Acle does sadly have, I suspect there may not be so much of an impetus to decorate the station in such a lovely fashion. Or maybe I'm just being cynical. Either way, it's a beautiful station, which also has the only passing loop on the Acle branch of the Wherry lines, and so it deserves a spot on this list. For number 2 on this list, we're venturing much further west with Downham Market, which is on the Fen line. I visited this station back in 2022 when I made a video about the route to King's Lynn, which incidentally was the first time I'd ever ridden a Class 387. It was certainly an okay experience, but the thing I remember liking most about the train was being able to warm my hands on a freezing cold day. But back to the station. This is a beautiful little station opened in 1846, and the station building is still in use to this day. It has waiting rooms, although I must admit I wish the fire in this one had been lit, toilets, a signal box, and a lovely little cafe where I got a hot chocolate to prevent hypothermia. One other thing I love about this station is that it's been put back into a Network South East style with assistance from the Railway Heritage Trust. The fact that it is a late 1980s style is a reference to the fact that campaigners succeeded in getting the Fen line between King's Lynn and Cambridge electrified around that time. Altogether, it's a wonderful little station. Now it's time for number 1. Will it be a massive impressive station? A terminus? Will it have a toilet? Well, long-time viewers of this channel will probably not be surprised to know that the answer to all those questions is no. It's actually Burney Arms. I know what you're thinking. It's tiny, in the middle of nowhere, you can only get off at the very front doors of the train, and there isn't even a phone box to check. Yes, I'm aware it's perhaps a strange choice, but to be perfectly honest, that's part of why I love it so much. You can't get here by road, so your only options are to walk across the marshes or to get the train, which serves the station infrequently to say the least. There's a reason it was once the least used station in the country. That and the signalling works that meant it was closed for a good chunk of 2019/2020, which combined with the pandemic may have skewed the figure somewhat, but that's not important right now. I read an article online that refers to the feeling of getting off at the station as being creepy and like you're in a B-movie horror film. Personally, I prefer to call it peaceful. The most you'll hear at the station itself, other than when the train arrives, is bird song and some mooing. It's a short walk to the old windmill and the river. One thing I also love about Burnley Arms is the history. This station exists because the stipulation of selling the land to the railway company by Thomas Trench Burney, the original landowner, was that a station be built here, and then his subsequent legal wrangling to make sure trains always stopped here after the naughty railway company tried to get out of actually serving the station that existed. For more on that, I'll pop a link to my video in the top corner. Now that we've had the top 5, it's time for a couple of honourable mentions, because it was actually really difficult to decide which stations would make the cut. The first is Buckingham. Now this, much like Burnley Arms, is a little served and little used station on the Wherry lines. Also like Burnley Arms, it's surrounded by an RSPB nature reserve. It's also the place where I announced my goal of visiting all the stations in Norfolk. So you might be thinking to yourself, Sarah, this station is so little used. Why are you even bothering to visit in the first place? And that's because it forms not just part of my series travelling the Wherry lines, it's also part of my goal to visit every station in Norfolk. Although good chunks of the platforms are out of use and the station building is no longer in railway use, I find this to be a lovely little station. It certainly has plenty of leaflets to keep you informed about the local area, and station adopter Trevor Garrod has made every effort to make sure you don't miss your train. He even put train times in the birdwatching hide nearby. It's so peaceful and a beautiful area to relax and watch wildlife and trains. The other honourable mention is for Gunton Station on the Bittern line. This may now only have one platform and a single track running through, but the thing that lifts this station for me is what's been done to the old station building. Although this is no longer in railway use, the owner of the house that it has become has put a considerable amount of time and money into restoration and creating a glorious heritage station feel, much like at Acle. Hearty thanks to Stanley Hearn for doing this, as it really does make it a lovely place to pass the time waiting for your train, or even just to visit the station purely for the purpose of admiring his work. I really hope you've enjoyed this little journey around my favourite stations of this fine county. Thank you so much for watching, and please leave a like, a comment, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more from me. I'll see you again next time for another railway adventure. Bye. As always, an extra special thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, whose names are listed on screen now, as well as anybody who donates to me on Ko-fi. You really do keep this channel going, and your generosity is very much appreciated. If anybody would like to become a patron, a channel member, or buy me a coffee on Ko-fi, the links to do so are in the description below. Oh yeah! That went through so fast I don't think I even saw what number it was. I hope the camera caught it. The camera didn't catch it. I can't put that on my train spotting app.